It didn't happen all at once. It wasn't a sudden crash, a dramatic explosion, or a singular tragic event that broke you. It was slower than that. It was a gradual erosion, day by day, hour by hour, until you woke up one morning and realized that the noise of the world, which used to be so deafening, had simply ceased to matter. You looked at the people around you, your colleagues, your friends, perhaps even your family, and you felt a terrifying, hollow silence where your empathy used to be. You used to care so much. You used to anticipate every need, manage every emotion in the room, and absorb every chaotic frequency around you. You were the peacemaker, the fixer, the reliable one. But now, you are just tired. Not the kind of tired that a night of sleep can fix, but a deep cellular exhaustion that feels like your soul has gone on strike. You might be terrified by this coldness. You might look in the mirror and wonder if you are becoming a monster. You worry that you have lost your humanity, that your heart has turned to stone, and that you will never feel the warmth of connection again. But let me tell you something that few people will admit. This coldness is not the end of you. It is the beginning of the most powerful transformation of your life. The world sees you withdrawing and thinks you are failing. They think you are broken. They think you have given up. Let them think that. Because what is actually happening beneath the surface is a reconstruction so profound, so radical, that when you finally re-emerge, your comeback will shock everyone who thought they knew you. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who ventured deeper into the human psyche than perhaps anyone before or since, understood this state perfectly. He didn't view this sudden detachment as a pathology to be medicated away instantly. He saw it as a necessary biological and spiritual pivot. You are entering a phase that Jung might have described as a descent into the unconscious, but let's use a term that fits your modern reality. You have initiated an emotional firewall. This is not a malfunction, it is a security protocol. Think of your mind like a high-performance engine. For years, you have been running at maximum RPM, fueled by the expectations of others, burning through your reserves of compassion and patience. You have been giving away pieces of yourself to keep the peace, to be good, to be validated. Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to survive in society. Your persona has been excellent. It has smiled when it wanted to scream. It has said yes when every fiber of your being wanted to say no. But the cost of maintaining that mask has finally exceeded your budget. You are currently in a state of compassion bankruptcy. The bank is closed, the vault is empty. And this sudden coldness you feel, that is simply the shutting of the heavy steel doors. Modern neuroscience actually confirms what Jung intuited decades ago. When the human brain is subjected to chronic emotional stress, when you are constantly triggering your mirror neurons to feel what others feel, constantly spiking your cortisol to manage crises that aren't yours, the brain eventually hits a breaking point. To protect your biological machinery from permanent damage, your prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain, initiates a downregulation of empathy circuits. It literally unplugs the connection. It creates a chemical distance between you and the source of the pain. So please, stop judging yourself for not caring. Your indifference is not a sin. It is a biological shield. It is your psyche's way of saying, we cannot survive another day of living for them. We must survive for us. However, this is where the danger lies. And this is where the mystery of your comeback begins. Most people reach this stage of numbness and they panic. They feel the void and they try to fill it immediately. They force themselves to socialize. They fake the smiles even harder, or they numb themselves further with distractions, scrolling, substances, endless noise, because the silence is terrifying. They try to patch the firewall because they think the wall is the problem. But Jung would warn you, do not tear down the wall yet. The wall is there to create a sanctuary. In this sanctuary, stripped of your need to please, you are left with something very rare and very uncomfortable: the raw truth of who you are. This phase is what we might call the Great Withdrawal. It is the moment the caterpillar dissolves into goop inside the chrysalis. To the outside observer, the caterpillar is dead. It is motionless. It is ugly. It is doing nothing. If you were to cut open a chrysalis at that stage, you wouldn't find a half-formed butterfly. You would find a chaotic soup of genetic material rearranging itself. That is you right now. You are in the soup. You are unstructured, unmotivated, and unrecognizable to yourself. The people around you, the ones who benefited from your lack of boundaries, will hate this version of you. They will ask, "What's wrong? Why are you so distant? You've changed." They will try to guilt you back into your old shape because your old shape was convenient for them. Your comeback will shock them because it will not be a return to the person you were. It will be the arrival of a person they cannot manipulate. Jung believed that the first half of life is spent building a healthy ego, getting the job, the partner, the social standing. But the second half of life, or the phase triggered by a major crisis, is about individuation. This is the process of becoming the person you were actually meant to be before the world told you who to be. But to get there, you have to survive the death of the old self. You are currently standing at the funeral of your persona. And funerals are supposed to be quiet. The mistake you are likely making, and the reason you feel so much anxiety alongside the numbness, is that you are fighting the funeral. You are trying to resuscitate a version of yourself that has already died. You are trying to be the nice person, the helpful person, while your internal system is screaming at you to stop. Imagine a surgeon who realizes mid-operation that their hands are shaking uncontrollably. The most responsible thing they can do is step away from the table. If they keep cutting, they will kill the patient. You have stepped away from the table of your life. That is not abandonment, that is professional responsibility. You are waiting for your hands to steady. But how do you navigate this without destroying your life completely? How do you manage this coldness without becoming permanently frozen? Jung warned that while this descent is necessary, the risk is drowning in the unconscious. The risk is that the emotional firewall becomes a permanent prison and you slip into cynicism, bitterness, or total isolation. There is a specific, dangerous trap that catches almost everyone in this phase. It is the trap of identification. You begin to believe that the coldness is who you are rather than where you are. You begin to identify as the broken machine rather than the mechanic fixing it. To understand how to execute this comeback, we must look at the anatomy of this withdrawal. We need to dissect the specific stages you are moving through so you can stop fighting them and start using them. We need to look at a story, not a fairy tale, but a clinical reality that mirrors your own. Let's talk about a case that might sound disturbingly familiar. Let's talk about the architect of his own prison. Let's talk about a man we will call Heinrich. Heinrich was a man who, by all metrics of the modern world, had won the game. He was a senior architect, a husband, a father of two, and a pillar of his community. If you had a problem, Heinrich had a solution. If you had a burden, Heinrich had shoulders. He was defined by his utility. He was the human equivalent of a Swiss Army knife, always ready, always capable, always unfolded. But at 45, Heinrich hit the wall. It wasn't a midlife crisis involving a sports car or an affair. It was much quieter. He sat in his car in the driveway one Tuesday evening, staring at the front door of his own house, and he realized he physically could not turn the key in the ignition. He looked at the warm light in the window, the life he had built, and felt a wave of repulsion so strong it made him nauseous. He didn't want to go in. He didn't want to be Heinrich the father or Heinrich the provider. He just wanted to cease to exist. Not to die, but to simply stop being perceived. For months, he moved through his life like a ghost. He sat at the dinner table, and while his mouth said, "Pass the salt," His mind was 1,000 miles away, floating in a grey void. He stopped laughing at jokes. He stopped asking his friends how they were doing because he honestly didn't care anymore. He felt like a hollow shell, painted to look like a man. He came to Jung terrified, convinced he was a sociopath. He thought he had lost his soul. Jung didn't treat Heinrich for depression. He didn't tell him to try harder to be a good husband. He told Heinrich that his apathy was actually a sign of health. He told him that the Heinrich who couldn't get out of the car needed to die. That version of him was a construct, a persona built entirely to please others, totally disconnected from his true self. The repulsion he felt was his inner self finally staging a violent protest against a life that was fake. The coldness was the only weapon his soul had left to stop the lie. Perhaps you are like Heinrich. Perhaps you are sitting in your own driveway, metaphorically or literally, unable to open the door to your own life. You look at the texts on your phone, the demands of your job, the expectations of your family, and you feel that same nausea. You feel guilty because you have a good life, yet you feel trapped by it. You wonder why you can't just be happy. You wonder why you have suddenly become so selfish. I want you to stop right there. If you recognize this coldness in yourself, if you see your own reflection in Heinrich's struggle, you do not need to prove it to anyone. You do not need to leave a comment explaining your situation to justify your pain. You do not need to apologize for it. Just breathe and observe it. Acknowledge that you are currently offline, and that is exactly where you need to be. To navigate this without destroying yourself, we need to map the terrain. We need to identify the specific signs of this great withdrawal, so you stop fighting them and start understanding their function. When you understand the function, the fear evaporates. The first sign that you have entered this transformative state is the tolerance collapse. Small inconveniences that you used to brush off suddenly feel insurmountable, while massive tragedies leave you feeling nothing. You might drop a spoon in the kitchen and feel a rage so disproportionate it scares you. Yet, if a friend tells you they are going through a breakup, you feel blank. You nod, you say the right words, but the emotional machinery isn't turning. You feel like an actor reading lines off a teleprompter. You judge yourself for this. You think, I am becoming irritable and uncaring. But let's reframe this immediately. This is not a lack of feeling. This is strategic emotional conservation. Your brain is in survival mode. It has identified that you have 0 energy reserves left. Therefore, it is hoarding every ounce of glucose and serotonin for your basic vital functions. It is cutting power to the empathy building and patience departments because they are too expensive to run right now. You are not being mean. You are in power-saving mode. You are redirecting energy from performing niceness to keeping yourself alive. The second sign is the authenticity audit. Suddenly, you find that you cannot lie. I don't mean you become a truth teller who shouts secrets in the street. I mean you physically cannot force yourself to engage in social lubrication. The polite chit-chat, the fake laughter at a boss's bad joke, the pretending to be interested in a boring conversation. You just can't do it anymore. It feels physically painful, like wearing a shirt made of sandpaper. You start ghosting people. You avoid gatherings. You stop responding to messages because typing, "Lol, that's crazy," feels like a betrayal of your soul. The world calls this being antisocial or depressed. Jung would call this the dissolution of the persona. The mask is melting. You are losing the ability to be fake because your psyche is demanding the truth. This is not social anxiety. This is an allergy to inauthenticity. You are no longer willing to trade your energy for approval. You are instinctively filtering out relationships and obligations that provide no nutritional value to your soul. You are clearing the dead wood from the forest floor so that something new can grow. It feels lonely, yes, but it is a holy loneliness. The third sign is perhaps the most frightening, the loss of ambition. All the goals you used to care about, the promotion, the nicer car, the body fat percentage, the number of followers, suddenly look like toys for children. You look at the things you spent years chasing and you think, who cares? This terrifies high achievers. You feel like you are losing your drive, your edge. You worry you will end up doing nothing for the rest of your life. But listen closely. You are not losing your ambition. You are shedding borrowed dreams. Most of what we strive for in the first half of life isn't what we want. It's what we were taught to want. We chase things to prove we are worthy of love. When you hit this wall, your soul is telling you, I am done jumping through hoops for treats I don't even like. You are not becoming lazy. You are recalibrating your compass. You are waiting for a destination that actually matters to you, not to your parents, your society, or your ego. This state of suspension, this in-between place where the old dreams are dead, but the new ones haven't arrived, is what the ancients might have called the liminal space. It is a waiting room, and the most dangerous thing you can do in a waiting room is run around screaming because the doctor hasn't called your name yet. Sit down. Wait. The new directive is coming. However, there is a final stage to this withdrawal. It is the deepest point of the descent, and it is the point where the comeback is actually forged. This is the stage where you stop looking at the world entirely and finally turn that cold, analytical gaze inward. This is the moment you meet the shadow. And this meeting will determine whether you emerge from this cocoon as a butterfly or whether you simply rot inside it. The danger here is very real. If you stay in the withdrawal too long without a strategy, you risk what Jung warned against, identifying with the darkness. You risk becoming the victim of your own life, deciding that because the world exhausted you, the world is your enemy. You risk building the emotional firewall so high that no light can ever get back in. So, how do we pivot? How do we take this numbness, this social purging, this collapse of ambition, and flip it into the superpower I promised you? How do we turn Heinrich the ghost into a force of nature? The answer lies in a shift of perspective so subtle you might miss it, yet so powerful it changes everything. It requires you to stop trying to fix your feelings and start using your coldness as a lens. You are about to learn the art of clinical observation. Up until now, you have operated as an emotional sponge. You walk into a room and you don't just see the mood, you drink it. If your partner is anxious, you become anxious. If your boss is angry, you become fearful. You have no skin. You are a porous vessel that collects the toxic runoff of everyone around you. This is what exhausted you. This is why the firewall slammed shut. The sponge became so heavy with other people's water that it began to rot. Clinical observation is the act of becoming a mirror. A mirror reflects everything perfectly. It sees the anger, it acknowledges the sadness, it captures the chaos. But, and this is the key, the mirror does not become the image. It remains smooth, hard, and unaffected. When the angry person walks away, the mirror does not hold on to the anger. It returns to emptiness. Jung called this capacity for detached observation the development of the witness consciousness. It is the ability to stand behind your own eyes and watch the movie of your life without thinking you are the main character in every tragedy. So when you feel that coldness, do not try to warm it up. Use it. Next time you are in a crisis, perhaps a family member is spiraling or a colleague is dumping their stress onto you, lean into the numbness. Visualize a pane of thick, bulletproof glass dropping between you and them. This is your glass wall protocol. You can see them, you can hear them, you can nod and offer logical solutions, but their emotional frequency hits the glass and slides down. It does not touch your skin. You might think, isn't that cold? Isn't that heartless? No. This is the only way you can actually help them. Think about a lifeguard. If a lifeguard jumps into the choppy water and hugs the drowning swimmer, crying with them, panicking with them, they both drown. The lifeguard must remain distinct from the victim to save the victim. Your coldness is your buoyancy. It is the only thing keeping you afloat. By refusing to drown in their emotions, you become a solid object in their chaotic world. You become a rock they can grab onto, precisely because you are not moving. This is the great paradox of your comeback. By caring less about their feelings, you become more capable of handling them. But there is a deeper layer to this integration. We must address the entity that brought you this coldness. We must speak about the shadow. Jung famously said that the shadow is everything the person refuses to acknowledge about themselves. For years, your shadow has contained all your selfish impulses. It held your desire to say no, your desire to rest, your desire to be left alone, and your aggression. You suppressed these traits because you wanted to be a good person. You locked the selfish monster in the basement, but now the monster has broken out. That's what this numbness is. It is your shadow taking over the controls because the ego failed to protect the system. The shocking comeback happens when you stop fighting this shadow and instead form an alliance with it. You realize that this monster isn't evil. It is your primal guardian. Consider Heinrich, consider again. For weeks, Heinrich sat in that clinical observation mode. He watched his family like a scientist watching lab rats. It was alienating. But then, something shifted. He realized that his coldness gave him a voice he never had before. One evening, his boss called him at 7 p.m. with an emergency that wasn't really an emergency, just poor planning. The old Heinrich, the good guy, would have apologized, stressed out and done the work, ruining his evening. The new Heinrich, operating from his cold, analytical center, felt nothing. No guilt, no fear of being disliked. He looked at the phone, felt the weight of his own exhaustion, and simply said, "I cannot do that tonight. We will discuss it tomorrow at 9 a.m. Silence on the other end. The boss was shocked. He sputtered, tried to apply pressure, tried to induce guilt. But because Heinrich was numb, because his emotional firewall was active, the guilt tactics didn't work. They had nothing to latch onto. Heinrich wasn't being rude, he was simply stating a fact about his availability. He was a mirror, reflecting the boss's lack of planning back at him, without absorbing the stress. He hung up the phone, and in that moment, the numbness didn't feel like death anymore. It felt like power. This is the secret that shocks everyone. The coldness is the birth of your authority. When you return to the world, you will not be the frantic, pleasing, overextended person you were. You will be slower. You will speak less, but your words will weigh more. You will not rush to fill awkward silences because you have made friends with the silence. You will possess a quality that Jung described as gravitas. People are used to you being light, easy to move, easy to manipulate. Now, you are heavy. You are grounded in your own reality. When they push you, you do not move. This terrifies them at first. They will ask, "Are you okay? You seem different." And you will smile, a genuine smile, and say, "I'm fine. I'm just resting." You see, the goal of this entire painful process, the burnout, the withdrawal, the numbness, was never to make you unfeeling. It was to upgrade your operating system from child to adult. A child does what they are told because they fear rejection. An adult does what is right because they know their own value. The child needs the world to be happy so they can feel safe. The adult creates their own safety regardless of the world's weather. You are currently graduating. The ceremony is quiet and the diploma is invisible, but the shift is seismic.